Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content that I'm making, please click that subscribe button. Also remember to click that bell button and make sure to tick that box to send all notifications so you don't miss out on any videos. With that in mind, let's get on with the video. What's up guys, welcome to Munchkins Gaming, where we take your gaming to the next level. This is Munchkins logging in to bring you another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video. And welcome to my video guide on Prompto's EX and Cosmos fight on the road. So without further ado, let's start this video. Now, as always, we'll start off with the weaknesses, resistances, and the abilities of the last boss. In this case, it is the Sgt Imp. So you are going to be fighting two of them, so just be careful. Now, as for its weakness, it doesn't have any weakness. It does have a resistance to magic-based attacks. As for its ability, it has Rake, which is a melee brave attack, Flying Kick, which is a melee HP attack, Confuse, which is a magic brave attack and also has a fair chance of inflicting the debuff Confuse, Critical, which is a guaranteed critical melee brave attack. Next is Evil Ration attack, which grants itself an attack up and a max brave up to one of its allies. Then it has Evil Ration defense, which grants defense up and shield to one ally, and they both have a plus version, so the Evil Ration attack plus grants one ally a brave and grants itself an attack up and a max brave up as well. Next, it's the Evil Ration Defense Plus version, which grants its ally brave and then grants itself a defense up and a shield to its ally. Next, it has Command Rush, which is a melee brave attack which can also inflict a speed down debuff. Next is Calamity Bomber, which recovers itself from its break status, and it is a group range brave attack plus HP attack, and also deals a total HP damage to each target, so it's 100% HP damage flat out to the entire party. This also inflicts a defense down and has a higher turn rate when inflicting break or attacking a target if inflicted with break. Next is Moving Furiously, which raises its attack, defense, initial brave, max brave, and speed. Now, once you kill one of them, the other one will further buff itself, and a text will say glaring this way, which raises its attack, defense, initial brave, max brave, and speed more than the Moving Furiously. And finally, it has Roll Switch, which changes its action. Okay, so now that we know the weaknesses, the resistances, and the abilities of the last boss, it's now time for the general tips and guide. And the first one, as always, is going to be to save about 60 to 70% of your abilities on the last boss. Now, this really targets in the Cosmos fight, and if you are a new player, this applies to your EX fight as well. If you are a veteran though, you probably will run through that EX fight no problem. So my next tip is to obviously bring in the boosted characters. In this case, it's Prompto, Freya, King, and Selphie. If you don't have any of these characters, other characters that you may want to consider bringing are the Warrior of Light, Cloud, Furion, Noctis, Paladin Cecil, Pain, Agrias, Bartz, Sephiroth, Vayne, Laguna, Squall, Lightning, Fran, Jet, Sync, or Golbez. Now for the healers plus brave battery options, you do have Ram, Selphie, Maria, Eiko, Lena, Yuna, Porum, Aerith, or Cait Sith. Now one thing to note is someone like Eiko, who still relies on her magic based attacks in order to provide brave battery, will probably not work very well here. So just take your pick on a character that's not using or does not need to use any sort of offensive attack in order to provide brave. For example, if you do have Porum, she is basically a good healer plus brave battery in this fight because she doesn't really need to attack at all to provide those braves. So overall, she is still a safe pick, even though she is a quote-unquote magic based character. Now as for the summon, you do have an option between the Ifrit and Shiva, and in a couple of days you will have Ramu as well. Alright, so now that we're finished with the general tips, let's take a look at some general tips for the actual fight itself. The first one is for your friend support. You can either bring Equistus if you plan to delay the target or the boss later on, or you can bring Squall if you just want to clear through the mobs at the early waves and then use your main team to fight the bosses. The next one is to try and kill the bosses close to each other. There is an enrage mechanic. The glaring this way that I mentioned earlier is the enrage mechanic, so if you plan on killing them one by one, make sure you have the delay tactic ready for the last one. Otherwise, just trying to kill them both almost at the same time, and I know it can be a little bit tricky in the Cosmos fight, but in all honesty, it shouldn't be that difficult if you actually use your summon later on, maybe when they're about half their HP, so you can, reduce their HP even further, and so that way you are pretty much close to killing them about the same time. Now the next tip is basically for the ult attack. It just means it's the Calamity Bomber. Make sure your Brave is topped up so you don't get broken, or you will either take a lot of HP damage, because again, I repeat, this is 100% splash damage to the entire party. If you don't take a lot of HP damage, the other scenario is that you just end up dying. You can certainly try to heal yourself way through the damage, but most of the time I found that they either have too high of a Brave and end up killing everyone, or you find some way to actually reduce the amount of damage that you're gonna take that you probably won't need too much healing. For example, using the Warrior of Light shield will pretty much reduce the damage to almost nothing. However, there is an HP requirement here, so you best bring a healer anyway, even though you can sort of move your way around it if you have the Warrior of Light. So my final tip for you guys, apart from bringing a healer, is to actually try and take advantage of Selphie and Lena here. Their wall and the Wind Drake's Ward are actually pretty helpful buffs that can prevent you from getting debuffed. Confuse can be pretty annoying if you do get hit by it. Not to mention that they apply a speed down and a defense down as well with their Command Rush and the Calamity Bomber. If you get inflicted with these debuffs, basically it's almost lights out if you get hit by Calamity Bomber, and if you accidentally get broken along the way. So I guess the main point is to just try to be safe and you should be fine. Okay, so we're done with the actual general tips for the actual fight. It's time to take a look at some possible party compositions. The first one is of course going to be the boosted character team, which are Prompto, Freya, King, and Selphie. Now obviously you can only bring 3 of them. In this case, I think King is the one that needs to be kicked out. This is with a Squall support basically to clear the early waves, and then you have Ifrit or Shiva for the summon. Now the next team I have here is the team that you guys are seeing, which are Warrior of Light, Noctis, and Pain, with a Squall support to clear out the early stages and a Shiva summon. Now I picked Shiva because the bosses they're pretty quick once they're buffed up, so having Shiva there to increase your speed even though a little bit is going to help you out. And of course Warrior of Light will block out that Calamity Bomber like it's nothing. You will still get inflicted by maybe 4,000 or so HP damage, but the Warrior of Lights, if you have his EX, can actually heal through that as well. So you don't actually need to bring a second healer if you have the Warrior of Light. The next one is Vayne, Sync, and Selfie with Squall support, again to clear out the early waves, and Ifrit and Shiva for the summon. Now this is basically turn shenanigans and launch, and of course the Sync and Selfie combo is something that the community has been talking about for quite a while. Especially Sync's EX charge are very slow. Selfie is going to help in this regard. Now I do wish I can actually try this out, but unfortunately I didn't get Sync's EX weapon. Now my final team here is made up of Porum, Noctis, and Vayne with a Squall support, again to clear out the early waves. Then you have Ifrit or Shiva for the summon. Now this is something that I made up myself, and I feel like Porum, even though she is a magic based character, she doesn't really need any offensive attacks in order to be a good brave battery or even to protect the team. So basically Porum is here to replace the Warrior of Light. Obviously Warrior of Light is still the better choice in terms of which character to bring, because you know the Warrior of Light can be a little bit more offensive than Porum, but that brave battery I think is enough, and the HP damage reduction is going to help you out with that Calamity Bomber. Okay, so we're finally at the end of this video, and of course I'll give you guys my final thoughts on this fight. Now if you are going in here blind and you feel like, okay, I'll just, you know, plow through here, I think you may have found that if you actually didn't pay attention to anything or any guides at all, that you might have found this, oh man, this is pretty difficult. They keep one-shotting me. But as soon as you understand that how the Calamity Bomber works, and you know, and you get it in your head that you actually need to play safer rather than aggressive in this particular fight. And I know for a fact, because this is the way I think. I am quite an aggressive player, and I try to, you know, be as aggressive as much as I can, because I feel that's just my play style. And I ran through this blind and expecting that I'll just, you know, plow through this, and I ended up dying a few times in the EX where I was scratching my head. I'm like, what's actually happening here? So I actually had to, like, you know, sit down and slow down, and when I see that all attack, you just have to play safe. Unfortunately, that's the nature of this fight, is to actually try and play safe. We do have a turn restriction, but I feel like that turn restriction is actually pretty lenient. I do believe it is in the 90s. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it is in the 95 or something like that. So we do have quite a fair bit of amount of turns to try just to play safe whenever you see that all attack. So do I think this fight is actually difficult? Well, I wouldn't say it's that difficult. It's more so just trying to play safe. Again, if you are a pretty aggressive player like me, who tries to, you know, keep using abilities, I don't mind getting broken, I'll just break them back, this fight might be a little bit difficult for you. And of course, if you don't have the right party compositions to try and counteract Calamity Bomber, this sort of limits the amount of characters or different party compositions that you have, because honestly, some of the safe characters to pick are either Warrior of Light or Porum. And of course, bringing a healer like Lena is a safe choice as well if you don't have anything to reduce the incoming damage. So not that, again, if you have the right party composition for this one, it shouldn't be that difficult. If you have a safe character, this should be a fight that you can actually beat. However, if you don't have any of these characters, unfortunately this probably be in the high difficulty section for you. And I know you guys will probably say, Monch, that actually applies to any fight. If you have the proper character for that fight, you should be able to clear it. And yes, I agree, but this fight just emphasizes how much you need those safety characters in order for you to not die. And in the other fights, if you don't have the right party compositions, there are certain ways to circumvent those. Like, even if you take one huge HP damage on one character, or even you know, provoking on one particular character in order for them to take those damage, and then you can just heal that particular character. In this case, it's 100% splash damage. So not that the boss are extremely hard, but it's more like if you don't pay attention, if you don't do this mechanic right, you're gonna die, and that's it. There are no leeways to it. If you fail to understand the mechanic, it's lights out. And I think that makes it so this is, for me, kind of in the gray area, where some people will find it really easy because they have Warrior of Light. Some people will find it so difficult because they don't have a way to sort of max heal themselves, because you are still taking, if you don't have a tank, you are still going to be taking about 4,000 to 5,000, maybe even 6,000 damage, even though you don't get broken from the Calamity Bomber, depending on the Sgt Imp's Brave. So if you don't have a massive heal, the next time they use that Calamity Bomber, you're pretty much dead. And there's two of them, and they switch around. Like, one imp will do it, and then after a few turns the other imp will do it. So yeah, this fight is definitely going to be, for me at least, going to be in the gray area, in one extreme to the other. Anyway guys, I think that's it for this video. Remember to click like and subscribe if you find this video helpful at all. As always, I'd like to hear from you guys. Which team did you use to beat the Prompto EX and his Cosmos fight? Leave it all down in the comments below. Let me know. And as always, follow me on Twitter and on Facebook at Munchkins Gaming. This is Munchkins logging off, and I'll see you guys in the next level.